So hello, as Alex mentioned earlier, my name is Shardae and I am a grade 2 IB PYP homeroom teacher at the Yaoyuan bilingual school. And I have been teaching online for 9 weeks, just coming into my 10th week now. So I have been kind of through the whole process since the start of all this. So I am hoping that by sharing some of my experiences that you'll be able to take something away from this process and just know that you're not alone in these challenging and changing times, and it can be enjoyable as well. Next slide, please. So the first aspect I want to talk about is relationships. Now, being a teacher, relationships is a massive part of our job especially with our students, and then we've also got our parents and colleagues as well. So I'm just going to be talking about what the impact has been and what I have done to maintain and develop these relationships. Next slide, thanks, Alex. So for me, I was quite concerned when we found out we were going to be going online because our school was on school holidays. So I was actually a little bit worried about what online would mean for my relationships with my students, especially I teach grade 2, so I teach a younger grade. However, I found, as just mentioned, communication as well has been super important. And the other thing is pastoral care for students, which I'll talk about in more detail, but that's taking care of students' emotional and social well-being as well. Next slide, thanks, Mel. So first off, I want to talk about communication, and as communication is quite a broad and biggest word, so I want to talk about the ways I have used communication to make sure I'm maintaining the relationships with students, parents and teachers, and also building upon them. So as Jess also mentioned, I think being open and honest about what's happening, why you're moving online, why the students can't be at school and what you are doing. So providing enough information to parents and guardians and students about what is going on, but not too much to overwhelm them. So keeping those communication lines really open and honest. And I found that's really helped put my students and parents at ease. I think Jess also mentioned this as well, but I guess it's really important, these points, is taking on feedback. So I know my school sourced feedback from the parents about what's been going on, what's working at home, and I also personally seek feedback from my parents regularly and guardians as well as students. So finding out what's working, what they're enjoying, and making appropriate changes to ensure the students are able to continue their learning journey and focusing on their social and emotional well-being as well. So seeking feedback has been really beneficial to allow you to make better changes to your learning online. And meaningful communication, and that goes with students, parents and colleagues. So checking in to see if someone's okay, or if you're having an issue with something, reaching out to a colleague, or if there's something going on with a student, checking on the parents and making sure they're okay. I have students that are in different countries still, they're not back in Shanghai. So there's different time zones, and I know that for them it might be challenging to keep up with their learning. So always checking in to see how they're finding it as well. Thanks, Alex. Great. So as just mentioned, using one or so platforms is beneficial to keep your communication in one space and make it easier, but I personally like to I use these 4. I know for some people that's just way too much, and that's completely understandable, but these are the platforms that I use for my communication and they work for me. So CC Talk we use is our place where the students do all their learning and interactions with each other and with the teacher and do their activities. Zoom I use for my pastoral time, which I'll give more examples of that in a moment. And we also use that for our grade meetings and wider school meetings as well to catch up, because you get to see each other's faces and it's quite interactive. Class Dojo is where I communicate mostly with my parents, provide them with whole class updates as well as private messages if I need to contact parents privately or vice versa. And then WeChat is where our school does majority of our communication with each other. So I have my grade group chat, and then we have a whole school group chat that allows us to keep in touch, check in, and provide updates. So yes, as I said, 4 might be too much for you, and just I use some more mainly than others. Okay, so pastoral care is a really important thing that our school has implemented Schoolwide, which has been a really beneficial thing in not only maintaining my relationships with my students, but definitely building upon them and making them stronger. So I think it's really important. So pastoral care is where we are making time for our students' emotional and social well-being. So this might look different across the school depending on the grade level and ages, but for my grade 2 class, we have created a time of about 15 minutes to half an hour because I don't want it too long, but sometimes the kids are really enjoying it, so I don't want to cut it off too short. But this is where we just chat and catch up and play games. So next slide, please, Alex. So making time for the students to share their ideas, to play the first picture where it says sharing, a student had made a little play about some content we've been learning and wanted to share, and the kids loved it. So that was really exciting. Word games. I let the students choose the games that they want to play on here. So providing the students with choice and agency and allowing the students to use the programs as well. So our pastoral care time allows the students to interact with each other, talk about how they're feeling, and see each other. I'm mindful of limiting screen time. That's why it's just a short time every day, but I've definitely found this builds morale with our students and also allows me to keep in contact with them. Next page, thanks, Alex. So I have actually got a student that I have never met in person before, and through Zoom and our online pastoral care time, I've really gotten to know this student and they've become a really active member in the classroom. And because with Zoom, you can actually see each other's faces. It's been really good for my other classmates to get to know this student who, we haven't actually met. So I think if you can make time for your students that is away from learning time, that's about their social emotional well-being, it's really important. So sometimes we have a chat, sometimes we'll play games, sometimes we'll play musical instruments. A few of my kids have harmonicas and we just sung along one day and played those. So I think definitely communicating regularly and having the time for your students is utmost important for maintaining and also developing relationships. Next slide, Alex, thank you. So for me, the majority of my experiences with online has been quite positive through the use of communication and supporting my students' social and emotional well-being. Next slide. So the second thing I'm going to touch on is workload and what I have gone through and what to kind of expect in your context to help you manage this. Next slide, thanks, Alex. So it is different, as Jess mentioned, it's completely different to the class time. So I will be honest, you will need more time to prepare and get used to how to prepare for lessons to begin with online. You probably need more visual aspects for providing students with the content that they need to know and allowing for differentiation. So it does take a little while to get used to how to source the resources and find ones that are appropriate for your learning context. And as Jess also said, it takes time to learn how to use and navigate a new system or program. So with that aspect, I think Jess mentioned it as well, take the time to practice if you are just starting and you know what program you are going to use. I was really lucky, my school did provide us with some training for this, but I reached out to one of my colleagues, once again using that communication, and I just said, hey, can I make a time to have a practice Zoom run with you? And we just played around with the features. So by the time we got to our classrooms, we already knew how to use and navigate those systems. So that's okay. I feel like I'm stealing all your content, Jess. Next slide, please, Alex. I feel, but yeah, we're saying the same thing, but I guess it goes to show these things have worked for both Jess and I. And and they're quite simple, you can do them. So what worked for me in lessening, like helping with a workload, was working collaboratively. So I'm very lucky with my team. I have 3 other grade 2 teachers in my team, and we all work together to create and plan our lessons. So we share the resources. So instead of planning, you know, 8, 9, 10 different activities and lessons and getting the videos and content needed, we, you know, plan 1 or 2 to 3 each and share the resources together. And when I say working collaboratively, as I said, I reached out to a friend who helped me navigate Zoom and things like that. The next thing I'll say is using already available resources. There are so many resources available now that educational websites have created that are now available for free, or, you know, limited, you know, a limited amount is for free. So please take advantage of that. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. I do know that sometimes you'll have to make activities that are just specific for your classroom, but there's a lot already out there, so use them. Don't waste your time making things that are already available. And Jess also said this, but I guess it's also really important for me, and it's helped me, is setting up a schedule and a space for work. So managing your time helps you manage your workload. So setting times for learning, and when you have your classes, times for, you know, checking the students' activities, providing them with feedback, and then scheduling in breaks. It's so important to have a break from the computer, from your work. Have your lunch break. We get to, normally at school, there's always something going on, so take advantage of being able to actually take your lunch break. It's really important. And if you are able to, set up a little workspace. That's been really helpful for me to find, okay, this is my workspace, and then that's my home space. As teachers, we often take our work home anyway. So being at home, I think it's really important to have work time and also your own personal time. Thanks. Next slide, Alex. So I can say that it does get easier. After 9 weeks, I found that I'm really enjoying my online time with my students. While I much prefer being in the classroom, it can be really enjoyable and fun. So once you get used to navigating, my colleagues and I were actually just saying the other day, oh, we've gotten so much better at planning lessons that are more interactive and fun for the students because we've taken on that feedback, and we're so much quicker at navigating the system. So yes, I can say that after 10 weeks nearly of this online, I can promise you it does get easier. Just like anything new you're learning, it's hard at the start. Next slide, thanks, Alex. And the last thing I'll talk about is mental and emotional health, and this is so, so important. So I'm just going to run through some things that I have done that have helped me maintain and support my mental and emotional health during this time. So last, thanks, Alex. So I feel like my slides are really short. Oh, I don't know what's happened. Oh, there we go. So these are my things that I've done that have helped me. So first thing that I think is really important, especially if you are in isolation, I can say I did 14 days where I couldn't leave my house. So I can empathize with people who are in that situation. It is tough, but you can get through it by reaching out and staying connected with your loved ones and friends. So whether that be virtually or in person, if you're lucky enough to be able to leave your house and things like that, but have a Zoom call with some of my friends and I. Every Thursday we have a little Zoom night and we do different things. Like we have facials, we have wine tasting and things like that. So reach out, whether it be a message or a FaceTime or something like that. As Jess mentioned, take a break. It is so important to exercise. Now, I did the 14 days in my house where I couldn't leave, but as Jess said, yoga is fantastic. My fiance and I did yoga every day just for 10, 15 minutes, and it really helped us relax, stay motivated, and then also just do something fun and relaxing. My fiance and I have taken up practicing the guitar, and that really broke up our day and time in isolation. Don't read the news every 5 minutes. When I first found out about COVID-19 and impact that it was having and how serious it was getting, I was reading the news all the time and overwhelming myself and getting really stressed out. So while it's super important to stay updated with, you know, government updates and health alerts, don't be doing it every 5 minutes, and just make sure you're reading from credible sources. And lastly, don't be so hard on yourself. This is new, this is different. You haven't done it before. So be kind and be patient. And when you can, just take a breath and enjoy the process. Upon reflection, I've worked out how much I have achieved and how flexible and resilient my students are and how adaptable they have been working online. So enjoy the process while you can. Lastly, I'll just quickly touch on some resources. There are hundreds and hundreds out there. If you type in a web browser, online resources for schools, you can find so many, but I'm just going to quickly say which three I've used. So Twinkle I've used for lesson ideas and PowerPoints. They're already available. They're both subscription and free options for Twinkle. Wiser.me is where you can create interactive worksheets. Now, I'm not a big fan of worksheets normally, but you can create worksheets that allow students to draw pictures, upload videos, voice record, so they're a bit more interactive and allow for more differentiation, and you can provide instant feedback to the students, so that allows you to keep that communication open. And Scholastic, they have now got a home learning, so if you type in Scholastic home learning, it should come up, and you can access books and activities to do with the books and games, and it's available for students. They can do it themselves, parents and teacher resources. Now, Scholastic, some aspects work in China and some don't, so just be aware of that, depending on where in the world you are. But I found that a really fantastic tool to get ideas, and they're already available for online. I have a lot more if you I have a lot more resources that I do use, and I can provide anyone with a list if you want to know about more, but I just didn't want to overwhelm you at this stage. And so that's it. There's one more slide that just says thank you and has my email if you wanted to reach out and contact me, ask me any more questions. You can find me at shardae.larner@liaounEDU.org, and I'd be more than happy to be a friend, be a listening ear, or provide any resources or ideas. So thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share my experiences with you guys.
Great, thank you for that, Shardae. And with sharing your contact details, I think that's great. A big part of the motivation behind doing these webinars is to try to encourage people to build kind of professional and peer support networks that they might not otherwise be able to build. So sharing that and being open to having people reach out to you is great. That's the right idea. So I hope people will reach out to you if if they have questions.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a big part of me being supported on my online journeys, just reaching out to people, and people are so welcoming and kind and sharing. Just happy because everyone is going through this and it's new, so I think it's been really lovely to have connections out there that can just help you, support you, and know that you're not alone. So.
Great. One question I wanted to ask you before we get into the panel, because I can tell from the way that you speak about your students that the relationships are very important, and that you like the communication. You emphasize communication as being important, right? You talked about finding a balance in it, and you're working with kids that are at lower primary, right? So I imagine you need a lot of parent support in that. And what I'm seeing in Canada, since Canada started going into having a lot of online education, is a lot of parents responding to it with just feeling completely overwhelmed with the amount of stuff they're getting from teachers. They just get so much information, and it's a big workload for them while they're trying to do their job at home. So how did you find that balance? Like, how did you feel your way through that balance with the parents of your students? Because you need their support.
Definitely, that's such a great question, Alex. And it is a balance. You don't want to overwhelm parents with too much information, because as you said, they're the ones that are with them all the time, and they're most likely going to be working at home too. So that's where we've sourced feedback from the parents saying what's working, what's not. We're really lucky here with my students that a lot of the parents are really involved in their students' learning. So they are happy to help. But we've found that, by taking on feedback, some parents are saying, no, we don't like this website, it's not working very well for us, or can we have this instead. So for one example, with the grade 2s, a big thing was the parents were a bit overwhelmed with the online time that the students were having. And we said, great, you know, they are young, they probably don't need to be online that often. So we, for the grade 2 team, had changed how we do our afternoon classes and a few of our classes. So we do more project-based learning, where we provide the students with the brief of what they need to do, and then they can create and do it in their own way and in their own time without needing to be on the computer or anything like that. So I guess, yeah, working with the parents, taking on what they're saying and making adaptations, and yeah, don't provide them with too much information, but just enough so they can do it. We are an IB school, so we're really big on student agency as well, giving students choice, and my students are, as I said, they've been incredible. I've learned so much from them. They're actually uploading things themselves and providing me with learning and things like that. So I'm really lucky actually that I've got the support from my parents, but that's because I think I've communicated with them really regularly about what we should be doing online. And I've also said, while their learning is really important, the academic side of things, but also their social emotional well-being is just as important. So if they can't make the class, that's okay. They will catch up. They're resilient. They're like sponges. They take in so much. So I know I've got some students that are taking a little bit of time off because for their well-being, and that's fine. And I'm just providing them with little bits so they don't miss out on anything. I hope that answers. It's a bit long-winded. It's not just one answer though. Sorry. So yeah, it's a bit of different mixtures of doing things that work.
That really helps provide insight. That's great. I mean, it's a real challenge, and I can see how even finding the way to adapt and respond to different parents' needs has to add to the workload as well. So it's a complex kind of balancing act you're in, but it's great to get that kind of insight about how you've been doing it over months, and finding a way and having confidence that you can make it work. That's fantastic.